figure out what our unit rate is. When we look for unit rate, remember the easiest way to find it is to put the price over the unit. Okay, so whatever the price is, put it over the unit. Oops, unit. Okay, that is how you find your unit rate. So let's read the problem together. It says a website contains hundreds of different recipes. Included with each recipe is a table that gives the approximate cost for different numbers of servings. What is the unit cost for this recipe? Represent the information in another way that will make it easier for the users of the website to identify the unit rate. First of all, what is this problem about? It's about the website containing hundreds of recipes. And then what is this problem asking for? It's asking for what is the unit cost, so you gotta pay for recipes. What is the unit cost for one recipe? Okay, and then it says represent, so that's my do word, represent the information in another way that will make it easier for the users of the website to identify the unit rate. So it says represent it in another way. That means we're gonna make a table, a graph, or an equation, depending on what the preference is, what's easier for you, okay? And then it says, we know what the problem is, we ask what our question, like what the problem's asking for, and now what information did they give us? They gave us this table. So the roast chicken and vegetables and rice, with vegetables and rice, okay? The number of servings, so this is to serve 2 people, serve 4 people, serve 6 people, serve a family of 8. Okay, and then the cost for each is $2.50 for 2, $5 for 4, $7.50 for 6, and $10 for 8. That's not bad for roasted chicken, vegetables, and rice. So let's look at a way to be able to, so we look at it at a table, but let's picture it in a different way. Let's look at it, this proportional relationship through a table, through a graph, and then interpret our unit rate. So let's take a look at the graph and what this table looks like if we graphed it, okay? When we graph it, look at the information on the table. Our cost is here, so this is our cost on our y-axis. So our cost is our y-axis, and our number of savings is our x-axis, okay? So that tells me that when the line is formed, when we make our line, so at 2, it's at $2.50. At 4, it's at $5. At 6, it's at $7.50. And at 8, it should be at $10, right? So let's take a look at the next step. Okay, it says model it. We're gonna make an equation to represent the unit rate of a proportional relationship. So this graph shows that one serving, meaning one person, serving of a recipe is $1.25. So there's one recipe and it equals $1.25. Let's see if I can zoom in. I think that's as far as it goes. A little bit more, there we go. Okay, so on the recipe, we have $1, for one person, it equals $1.25. We can also divide any of the equivalent ratios on the table. So let's say for 2 people, we said it was $2.50, right? So we can divide $2.50 by 2. We can also divide, let's do a 10 by 8. So at 10 recipes, we can serve, at $10, it serves 8 people. So you can divide 10 by 8, that also equals $1.25. Notice how when you put it into a rate and you divide it, $2.50 divided by 2 equals $1.25. 10 divided by 8, the price is $10, divide that by 8, you get $1.25. It's a constant rate of proportions. Okay, so the equation for the cost of X servings is the unit rate times the X servings is how many people with the number of servings. So my Y is going to be 1.25 times X. So depending on whether it's 1 person, 2 person, 3 person, 4 persons, 4 people, 5 people, 6 people. Okay, so it depending on X, you're going to multiply it by $1.25, and that should give you the amount of what your Y would be. Okay, so on our next page, we're going to answer questions from page 109, but we're going to use this problem here to be able to help us determine how to answer the questions on page 109. Okay, so number 2 says describe how the rate is shown on the table, graph, and the equation. So I'm going to take a look again at my table, my graph, and my equation. Okay, so there's 1, 2, 3. There's 3 things I'm looking at now. Okay, what do we see? We saw that we can divide any number of pairs in the table to find the unit rate. Okay, we also learned that the unit rate is the slope of the graph. And the coefficient of X in the equation. Okay, so what we're saying here is if I look at my unit rate here, I'm dividing 250 by 2, $5 by 4. Okay, so I'm dividing these numbers, and on my graph, my slope is my rise over run. So basically, I'm picking once again 2 points. Okay, and I'm figuring out how far up I go and how far over I go to get from one point to the other, and that's going to give me my equation. Okay, number 3 says what is the constant of proportionality and how does this relate to the unit rate? Okay, the constant of proportionality, that's C of P, is 1.25. That is also the unit rate. I'm going to say UR for short. Okay, that is also the UR. Okay, what is the slope of the graph? Number 4. How does this relate to the unit rate and constant rate of proportionality? Okay, the slope of the graph is 1.25. The slope, the unit rate, and the C of P are all the same. It's 1.25. Okay, so if they're all the same, it says explain what the unit rate means in the context of the problem. So it's saying explain what 1.25 means. Okay, so the unit rate of the problem, so the UR for the problem is the cost for one person, one serving. Okay, so it costs $1.25 for one serving, I write really big, of the chicken recipe. Okay, and then let's look at the try it. So we've got another problem here. So this table shows the function of how many words Gary can read if he reads at a constant rate. So that means that Gary's constantly reading. He's kind of like reading like a robot. He doesn't stop and pause in between. Represent the data in two different ways. Explain how Gary could use each representation to identify how many words he can read in a minute. Okay, so at 2 minutes, we know that he reads 320 words per minute. 4 minutes, he reads 640 words per minute. 6 minutes, he reads at 960 words per minute. And 8 words, he reads at 1,280 words per minute. Okay, so what I have to do is I have to find my unit rate. Okay, UR. Okay, so my UR, I'm gonna label my X, and label my Y. Okay, my unit rate is when I divide my Y over my X. So let's put 320 over 2. And let's divide 320 divided by 2. Okay, 320 divided by 2 is, I know, 16. So 160 times 2 gives me 32. Gives me 160 over 1. 160 divided by 1 is 160. So my M, or my slope, because I said that my slope, my unit rate, and my C of P are all the same, my M, my slope, is 160. So Gary reads 160 words per minute. And I can make a graph in order to show that. I have, let's see, my numbers, so 200, 400, 600, 800, 1,000, so on and so forth. And then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so I'm just graphing from my number of words to my minutes. Okay, and if I plot it, I start at 0, 0. At 0 minutes, he's not reading anything. At 2 minutes, he's reading at 320, so right about there. At 4 minutes, he's reading at about 640, so that's like right in the middle here. And at 6 minutes, he reads 960. And then at 8 minutes, he reads over 1,000. So my line kind of looks like that. So there's my graph.